Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learned back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about transit Jupiter making a square opposition or inconjunct aspect to one's natal Mars. Now, when we're talking about transits that involve Jupiter, they could be about expanding horizons, going outside the box, so to speak, enthusiasm, exuberance, optimism, hope, jocularity, joviality, and truth and veracity. Now, when you're talking about transit Jupiter basically making an adverse aspect to one's natal Mars, and when I say basically, I'm going to elaborate on that. The thing is, of course, squares and opposition aspects in astrology are adverse and negative. The inconjunct, though it's seen as neutral, can actually, can require an adjustment, transition, and of course, those things may cause a little tension, a little exasperation. So, collectively, I see this as basically an adverse transit. Now, the thing is, when you have transit Jupiter, again, basically making the adverse aspect to the natal Mars, well, it may manifest in expanding horizons, going outside the box, so to speak, enthusiasm, exuberance, optimism, jocularity, joviality, truth, veracity. Those things may conflict with taking action. You might not be overly enthusiastic about taking action or initiating things at this time. If you know the natal, Mars is in the zodiac sign Cancer. It could be home projects, so it's home renovation or organizing your home as an example, or doing things with the family at this time. It can be something too where, again, Mars can be about initiative and enterprise. You might not really feel that joy and that you really feel enthusiastic or exuberant about taking any kind of initiative or enterprise on things right now. It's a time where you may need more cajoling or coaxing from others in order to do so. Mars is also associated with aggression, and it can be a time where you might have philosophical differences over these things right now. You're having a hard time, aggressively, going outside the box, expanding your horizons at this time. It can also be a time too. You may also, the situation, maybe a little bit more contentious, with Jupiterian people, whether it's philosophers or religious people or sports athletes. Could be people that play sports on a recreational level in your area. Mars is also about anger as well and acrimony, so it can be a time where there can be, overreactions. Be careful about, recklessly doing something out of anger. It can be distorted levels of anger at this time. It could be something that might, fluctuate back and forth very strongly, becoming, exceptionally passive one moment and then becoming really exceptionally acrimonious and angry the next. Now, Mars is also associated with combat and confrontation. So it can be a time where you don't feel, again, that motive, that enthusiasm, the exuberance, and really trying to confront something at this point in time. Or you may see, Jupiterian people may be overly confrontational, perhaps at this time. Whether, again, going back to, people in sports or religion or philosophy. It could be people that are in some kind of travel agency, or I should say like a travel profession. It could be a pilot. It could be, foreigners in some cases. Mars is also connected, with sexual drive. So again, when you talk about Jupiter, it's really about enlargement. But when you have, the transit of this basically making an adverse aspect to the natal Mars, well, it can be expressed. It could be distorted levels of your sexual drive and energy. It might be something where, it goes, you might feel like really, at a high level at one time, one moment, and then the next level it might feel very depleted and diminished. Um, it might be hard to find a happy medium with it at this time, basically. But anyway, Mars is also connected with energy and vitality. So again, we're going back to could be strong vacillation, distortion of vitality, of energy at this time. You might really, feel, really exuberant about doing things, that require a lot of energy. I mean, say if it's, the natal Mars is in Taurus, it could be like long distance running, things of endurance. It could even be working out vigorously because Taurus energy is about pacing oneself. And you might feel, this abundance of energy one moment, and then you might feel, it might be really, depleted and diminished the next. Now, another thing too is that anatomically speaking, Mars is connected with the head, the face, the skull, the sexual organs. Jupiter again is very reckless energy, and the thing about this is it's important to be very careful at this time, doing wheelies or something, and where you might endanger yourself, or as far as causing some injury to the head, the face, the skull. It's important to take these precautions anyway, like wearing a helmet on your head if you're motorbiking or what have you. But even probably, I would say definitely more so during the transit like this, because this is a time where people can get in over their heads in terms of doing things, actions in general, expending their energy. I mean, Mars is about accidents, Jupiter is about reckless energy. There could be a greater propensity for those kind of accidents that are connected with reckless behavior. Now, Mars is also associated with courage, and it could be a time, you might be a time where we're going back to Jupiter, with the distorted levels of energy. It could be a time where you might feel like very courageous and wanting to confront something one moment, and then the next moment you may feel a little bit more passive. It can be kind of energy that may be going back and forth at this time. And it can be a time too when you look at this transit. I mean, Mars is connected with physical injury, and the thing about it is, we're going back to Jupiter with the reckless movement, reckless energy, and just be careful at this time that you're not doing things, very impulsively that might cause, some physical injury. There's say if the natal Mars in Gemini, it could be some injury, to the arm or the hand or shoulders, as an example. Can be something too where, Mars is also associated with cuts and burns, and it's just very important to be careful at this time. If you're feeling adventurous or what have you, just make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do, to make sure minimize things, getting injured, even cuts and burns. If you're doing something, you're working with fire or something, it's very important to really make sure you're taking your precautions to limit that propensity of getting burned at this time. You're doing something with welding, as an example. The thing about this too, Mars can also be connected with surgery, and the thing about this is Jupiter could be very extravagant energy. It might be a time where it might be harder to come up with the funds for this, or it might be a surgery that just simply costs a lot of money, whether you have the money to actually afford it or not. Mars is also about our drive and motivation. So it might be difficult finding that exuberance and enthusiasm to muster up the drive, the motivation to accomplish things at this point in time when you have this transit. Now, another way this transit could manifest and pan out, it could be difficulty in finding the enthusiasm, the exuberance for activities, sports at this time. Even say if the natal Mars is in Scorpio, as an example, it could be some kind of extreme sports. It could be matters with investigation, going around, even just something simple with a metal detector, finding metallic objects, trying to find some coins, maybe even rare ones at this time. Now, and also to guard against becoming over optimistic about what you physically can accomplish and attain at this time. Now, let's say, for example, if the natal Mars is in Aries, it might be something with cycling or motorbiking at this time. Maybe it's something associated with combat sports, such as boxing or karate or judo or wrestling, as some examples at this time. I would say even fencing may apply. That is combative as well. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway, now in some cases, this can also be expressed in possible philosophical difference. It could be some difference on some belief or opinion on some matter. It could be with a sexual partner or somebody that's in a like a Mars field or profession. It could be somebody in law enforcement or per policeman. It might be somebody that might be in, a combat sport. As another example, somebody that might design maybe helmets or things associated with the head. Say if the transit Jupiter is in the zodiac sign Cancer, as an example, it could be philosophical differences on safety and security and sensitivity and what as far as like what one should really be sensitive to, or maybe issues with oversensitivity to criticism and ridicule, as an example. Now, and again, going back to the fact, this could also be about very distorted energy levels at this time, levels of energy. If the natal Mars is in Gemini, as an example, it might be, just maybe spreading yourself too thin, and trying to maybe one moment trying to do too much, expend too much energy in doing so, and then you don't have enough later on to hardly do anything. Or it could even be doing something Gemini related, such as something with dexterity, such as auto refrigeration mechanics, or just communications in general. Could be Gemini sport, I would say, like badminton or table tennis, because those require quick reactions. I would say that resonates, or could be related to Gemini. Could also be some issues with the at this time with the liver, the pancreas, the thighs, or the sciatic nerve. If you have them, it might adversely affect really your enthusiasm at this time. And if say if the natal Mars is in Aquarius, as an example, it could be enthusiasm or exuberance to do things associated with astrology, astronomy, computers, electronics, innovation, matters, with altruism, humanitarianism, as some examples. Anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Leonard saying stay well.